The morning sun cast long shadows across the golden fields of Kepler 442b as Commander Lyra Voss walked through her favorite garden. The sweet smell of blooming flowers filled the air, and she could hear the gentle hum of worker bees moving from plant to plant. This peaceful world had been her home for 37 years, and she had never imagined it could be in danger. Her communicator buzzed against her wrist, breaking the peaceful silence. The urgent tone made her heart skip a beat. She had been expecting this call but hoped it would never come. "Commander Voss here," she said, pressing the device. "Ma'am, you need to come to the command center right now," came the voice of her assistant, Captain Mira Wells. "We just received confirmation from the outer colonies." Lyra closed her eyes and took a deep breath of the flower-scented air. She knew what this meant. The nightmare that had been growing closer for months was finally at their doorstep. 20 minutes later, Lyra stood in the command center of the Zilani Defense Council, surrounded by screens showing star maps and fleet movements. Her people, the Zilani, were tall and slender with pale green skin and large, gentle eyes. They had always been peaceful farmers and scientists, never warriors. "Show me the reports," Lyra said to Captain Wells. The main screen lit up with images that made Lyra's stomach turn. The first image showed the beautiful ocean world of Aquarius Prime, once home to 12 million beings. Now it was a smoking ruin. The second image showed the mining world of Crater Base, its cities burning and its people gone. "The Kreks hit both worlds in the same week," Wells explained. "They took everyone who could work in their mines and killed the rest, just like they did on the other worlds." Lyra stared at the images of destruction. The Kreks were a race of giant insect-like creatures who lived only to conquer and destroy. For the past 2 years, they had been moving through this part of the galaxy like a plague, taking world after world. "How long do we have?" Lyra asked. "Our scouts say the main Kreks fleet will be here in 6 days, Wells replied. "Maybe 7 if we're lucky." Lyra looked around the command center at her people. Some were trying to work at their stations, but she could see the fear in their eyes. The Zilani had no real weapons, no warships, no army. Their idea of conflict was a disagreement about which crops to plant. "What about the Galactic Coalition?" asked Dr. Ross Chen, the head of their science division. "They promised to protect smaller worlds like ours." Wells shook her head. "The Coalition sent 3 ships to defend Aquarius Prime. The Kreks destroyed them in less than an hour. The Coalition says they don't have enough ships to fight the Kreks directly." "What about hiring mercenaries?" suggested another officer. "We tried," Wells said. "The best mercenary groups want payment we can't afford, and the ones we can afford won't fight the Kreks. They're too scared." Lyra felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. She was supposed to protect her people, but how could she fight an enemy that had conquered 17 worlds? The Zilani had never hurt anyone in their entire history. They grew food, studied plants, and lived in harmony with nature. They didn't even understand violence. "Commander," said a young technician named Alex Park, "there is one option we haven't tried." Everyone turned to look at him. Alex was barely out of school, but he was their best communications expert. "The humans," Alex said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone had heard stories about the humans, but no one knew what to believe. They were a new species, having joined the galactic community only 50 years ago. Most older races treated them like children who had just learned to build spaceships. "What do we know about them?" Lyra asked. Alex pulled up a file on his screen. "Not much, ma'am. They're from a world called Earth. They only discovered faster-than-light travel recently, so most species don't take them seriously. But there are some interesting reports." "What kind of reports?" "Well, there was a pirate attack on a trade convoy near the Vega system last year. 3 human ships responded to the distress call and destroyed 12 pirate vessels without losing a single ship. The pirates were using ships much better than human technology, but somehow the humans won." Wells frowned. "That could be luck or false reports." "Maybe," Alex continued. "But there are other stories. A human medical ship fought off raiders to protect a refugee camp. Human explorers who turned back to help strangers under attack. They seem to have a pattern of helping people they don't even know." Dr. Chen looked skeptical. "But are they strong enough to fight the Kreks?" This isn't a few pirates or raiders. This is a full military invasion force. I don't know, Alex admitted. But they're the only ones who might actually come if we ask for help. Lyra walked to the large window that looked out over their capital city. Millions of Zalani lived peaceful lives down there, farming, studying, raising their children. In 6 days, the Kreks would arrive and turn this beautiful world into another smoking ruin. She thought about all the diplomatic channels they had tried, all the formal requests for aid that had been ignored or refused. The great powers of the galaxy were too busy with their own problems to care about one small farming world. Alex, she said without turning around, can you send a message to human space? Yes, ma'am. It would take about 18 hours to reach their nearest listening post. Then do it. Send a general distress call. Tell them who we are, what's happening, and ask for help. Wells stepped forward. Commander, are you sure? We don't know anything about human military capabilities. What if they can't help? What if they make things worse? Lyra finally turned back to face her officers. Captain Wells, in 6 days the Kreks are going to arrive with 200 ships. They're going to kill anyone who can't work in their mines and enslave the rest. Our children will grow up as slaves if they grow up at all. She paused and looked at each person in the room. Right now the humans are our only hope. Maybe they can't help us. Maybe they won't even try. But if there's even a small chance that they'll come, we have to take it. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. Finally, Wells nodded. Yes, ma'am. Alex, prepare the transmission. As Alex worked at his station, Lyra wondered what she was doing. Was she saving her people or just giving them false hope? The humans were supposed to be primitive and violent, according to most galactic sources, but maybe, just maybe, those qualities would be exactly what her peaceful people needed. Message ready, Commander, Alex announced. Send it, Lyra said, and pray to whatever gods might be listening that someone out there cares enough to answer. The message shot out into space at faster than light speed, racing toward human territory. It was a simple plea from a peaceful people facing destruction, asking for help from strangers they had never met. None of them knew that human listening posts across 3 sectors would receive that message within hours. None of them knew that humans had a saying, when someone calls for help, you answer. And none of them could imagine what was about to happen when humanity decided to respond. Admiral Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm bell started ringing throughout Luna Base. The sound echoed through the metal corridors of humanity's newest deep space command center, built inside an old mining facility on the far side of Earth's moon. Morrison set down his cup and walked quickly to the main control room. At 62 years old, he had gray hair and deep lines around his eyes from years of military service. He had fought in 3 different conflicts during humanity's short time in space, and he knew the sound of real trouble. What do we have, Lieutenant? He asked as he entered the busy control room. Lieutenant Sam Carter, a young man barely 25 years old, looked up from his communications station. Sir, we just received a distress call from the Kepler 442 system. It's from a species called the Zalani. Morrison frowned. He had heard that name before but couldn't remember where. Show me the message. The main screen lit up with the image of a tall, pale green alien with large, sad eyes. When she spoke, her voice was soft and full of fear. This is Commander Lyra, Voss of the Zalani Defense Council. Our world is about to be attacked by the Kreks Dominion. We have no military forces capable of defending our people. Millions of innocent lives are at stake. We are sending this message to all civilized species, asking for help. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need assistance immediately. The message ended and the control room fell quiet. Morrison had seen many distress calls over the years, but something about this one hit him differently. Maybe it was the fear in the alien woman's voice, or maybe it was the simple fact that she was asking for help to protect innocent people. Sir, said Carter, we've been getting reports about these Kreks for months. They've already destroyed several worlds in that sector. What do we know about them? Morrison asked. Major Kate Brown, his intelligence officer, pulled up a file on her screen. The Kreks are a military empire, sir. They conquer worlds, take anything valuable, and either kill or enslave the population. They've taken 17 worlds in the past 2 years. And the Silani world? Agricultural planet, about 12 million inhabitants. They're completely peaceful, sir. No military forces, no weapons technology. They grow food and study plants. Morrison walked to the large window that looked out at the stars. Earth hung in the distance, a blue and white marble against the black of space. Somewhere out there, 12 million innocent people were waiting to die because no one would help them. "What's our fleet status?" he asked. Captain Lisa Bennett stepped forward. She was Morrison's second in command, a tough woman in her 40s who had served with him for 8 years. "We have 4 ships ready for immediate deployment, sir. The Thunderstrike, Lightning, Tempest, and Hurricane. Time to reach the Kepler system?" 3 days if we push the engines hard," Bennett replied. Morrison turned back to his officers. "Major Brown, I want everything you can find about Krek's tactics, ship designs, and military capabilities. Captain Bennett, start prep for immediate departure. I want us moving within 6 hours." The room burst into activity as officers began working at their stations, but Lieutenant Carter raised his hand with a worried expression. "Sir, shouldn't we contact Earth Command first? Get official approval for a military response?" Morrison looked at the young officer with a slight smile. "Lieutenant, someone just asked for help. We don't need permission to do the right thing." "But sir," Carter continued, "we don't know anything about these Zilani people. What if this is a trap? What if they're lying about being peaceful?" Major Brown looked up from her computer. "I've been checking galactic databases, sir. The Zilani have never been involved in any conflicts. They export food to dozens of worlds and have never even had a trade dispute. If they say they're peaceful, they probably are." "And if they're not?" asked Carter. Morrison's expression grew serious. "Then we'll deal with that when we get there. But I'd rather risk helping someone who doesn't need it than ignore someone who does." Within an hour, the command center was buzzing with activity. Colonel Ryan Murphy arrived with 2 companies of Marines, tough soldiers who had volunteered for the most dangerous assignments in human space. Dr. Amanda Foster brought her medical team, ready to treat wounded from any species. "Sir," said Captain Bennett as she reviewed the mission files, "I have to ask. 4 ships against a Krek's invasion fleet. The intelligence reports say they usually attack with at least 50 ships. Morrison nodded. "I know the odds, Captain, but we're not going there to win a fair fight. We're going there to protect innocent people. What's the plan?" "Simple. We get there before the Kreks do, assess the situation, and figure out how to make them regret ever hearing about that world." Colonel Murphy overheard the conversation and walked over. "Admiral, my Marines are ready for anything. But if we're really facing 50 or more enemy ships, we need to be smart about this." "Agreed," Morrison said. "Major Brown, what else do we know about Krek's tactics?" Brown pulled up several files on the main screen. "They prefer overwhelming force, sir. They surround a world, destroy any defenses, then land troops for occupation. They don't expect much resistance because most species surrender rather than fight." "What about their ships?" "Heavily armed but slow. They're built for attacking stationary targets, not ship-to-ship combat with fast enemies." Morrison smiled grimly. "Then we'll give them something they're not expecting." As the hours passed, the 4 human ships prepared for departure. The Thunderstrike was Morrison's flagship, a heavy cruiser designed for long-range combat. The Lightning was Captain Bennett's ship, fast and equipped with the newest electronic warfare systems. The Tempest and Hurricane were destroyer-class vessels, smaller but deadly. Other species in the galaxy built their ships to look beautiful and impressive. Human ships looked like what they were, weapons of war. They were angular, gray, and covered with armor plating. Every line of their design spoke of function over form. "Sir," reported Carter as final preparations were made, "we're getting messages from other species about the Zilani distress call." "What kind of messages?" "The Altarian Council sent a message of sympathy but said they can't spare any ships. The Centaurian Empire offered to negotiate with the Kreks after the conquest. The Volgan merchants are worried about trade route disruptions." Morrison shook his head in disgust. "Anyone actually offering to help?" "No, sir. We're the only ones responding to the distress call. Then I guess it's up to us. Morrison walked to the communications station. Open a channel to the Zalani world. When the connection was established, Commander Lyra Voss appeared on the screen again. She looked surprised to see a human face. Commander Voss, this is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Human Space Navy. We received your distress call. You're actually coming to help us? She asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Ma'am, we have 4 ships en route to your system. We'll be there in 3 days. Hold on until then. Tears appeared in the alien woman's large eyes. Admiral Morrison, I don't know how to thank you. No one else would even consider helping us. Morrison's expression was gentle but determined. Ma'am, when someone calls for help, we answer. That's what humans do. As the transmission ended, the 4 human ships left Luna Base and jumped into hyperspace, racing toward a distant world where innocent people waited for salvation. Behind them, Earth continued its peaceful orbit, unaware that its children were about to show the galaxy what humanity truly meant. The storm was coming, and the Kreks had no idea what they were about to face. 3 days after sending their desperate message, Commander Lyra Voss stood on the observation deck of the Zalani Defense Center, watching space through the large viewing window. Her people had spent those days in fear, preparing for the worst, while hoping for a miracle. Commander, called Captain Mira Wells from behind her. We're detecting ships coming out of hyperspace. Lyra's heart began beating faster. How many? 4 ships, ma'am. Large ones. Lyra rushed to the main control room where her officers were staring at their screens in amazement. The ships that appeared on their displays were unlike anything they had ever seen. They were huge, angular, and looked like they were built for war. Are they human ships? Lyra asked. Alex Park nodded from his communication station. Yes, ma'am. We're receiving a transmission now. The main screen lit up with the face of Admiral Jake Morrison. Even through the communication link, Lyra could see the determination in his eyes. Commander Voss, this is Admiral Morrison. We're here as promised. Permission to send a shuttle to your surface? Of course, Admiral. You're welcome here. 2 hours. Later, Lyra stood in the main meeting room of the Defense Center, waiting nervously. She had never met a human before, and all she knew about them came from scattered reports that painted them as either primitive or dangerous. The door opened, and Admiral Morrison walked in, followed by 2 other humans. Morrison was tall for his species, with gray hair and a firm handshake. The woman with him was introduced as Captain Lisa Bennett, and the 3rd human was Lieutenant Commander Nick Torres. Thank you for coming, Lyra said, still hardly believing they were really here. I wasn't sure anyone would answer our call. Morrison sat down across from her. Commander, we're here to help, but we need to understand exactly what we're facing. Tell us everything you know about the Kreks. For the next hour, Lyra and her officers shared every piece of information they had about the Kreks' dominion. They showed satellite images of destroyed worlds, intercepted communications, and intelligence reports from refugees who had escaped other conquered planets. Lieutenant Commander Torres took notes on a small device while asking detailed questions. How do they usually attack? What kind of ships do they use? How many troops do they land? They surround the planet with their fleet, explained Dr. Ross Chen. Then they destroy any orbital defenses and demand surrender. If the planet refuses, they begin bombing population centers until they give up. Captain Bennett leaned forward. What happens to the people after surrender? Anyone who can work is taken as slaves, Lyra replied sadly. Children, elderly, and disabled people are... She couldn't finish the sentence. Morrison's expression grew darker. How long do we have? Our scouts report the main Kreks fleet will arrive in 2 days, said Captain Wells. Maybe less. Torres looked up from his notes. How many ships are we talking about? Intelligence suggests around 200 vessels, Wells replied. The room fell silent. Even Lyra could do that math. 4 human ships against 200 Kreks vessels seemed impossible. But Morrison didn't look worried. Instead, he turned to his own officers. Captain Bennett, what's our assessment of their orbital defenses? Minimal, sir. The Zalani have some sensor platforms and communication satellites, but no weapon systems. Colonel Murphy's Marines? Already, preparing defensive positions around key population centers, Bennett replied. Dr. Foster is setting up field hospitals. Morrison turned back to Lyra. Commander, we need to discuss evacuations. How many people can you move to underground shelters? Underground shelters? Lyra looked confused. Admiral, we're a peaceful people. We don't have military bunkers or fortified positions. Then we'll make some, Morrison said simply. Lieutenant Commander Torres, I want you working with their engineers. Find us the strongest buildings, deepest basements, anything that can protect civilians during a bombardment. Torres nodded and left the room with several Zilani engineers. Lyra watched in amazement as the humans immediately began working on solutions rather than debating the problems. Admiral, she said carefully, I have to ask. You're 4 ships against 200 Krex vessels. How can you possibly win? Morrison smiled grimly. Commander, we're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to make the Krex regret ever coming to this system. Over the next 18 hours, Lyra watched in amazement as the humans transformed her peaceful world into a fortress. Marine Colonel Ryan Murphy arrived with 200 soldiers who immediately began teaching Zilani civilians how to take cover and evacuate quickly. Dr. Amanda Foster set up medical stations that could treat both human and Zilani wounded. Her medical teams worked with Zilani doctors to prepare for casualties. But what impressed Lyra most was how the humans treated her people. They didn't demand payment or ask for anything in return. They didn't try to take control of the planet or make political demands. They simply worked to protect innocent lives. I don't understand, Lyra told Morrison as they watched human Marines teaching Zilani farmers basic first aid. Why are you doing this? What do you gain by helping us? Morrison watched a human soldier carefully bandaging the arm of a young Zilani child who had scraped herself while playing. Commander, what do we gain by not helping you? I don't follow. If we ignored your call for help, 12 million innocent people would die or become slaves. How does that make the galaxy a better place? Lyra stared at him. But most species only help their allies or trading partners. They want something in return. Maybe that's why the galaxy has problems like the Krex, Morrison replied. Someone has to stand up for people who can't protect themselves. That evening, Krex scout ships arrived at the edge of the solar system. Long-range sensors detected 15 vessels moving toward the planet, obviously checking for defenses. Morrison stood in the Zilani command center, watching the enemy ships on the main display. Captain Bennett stood beside him, along with Lyra and her senior officers. Sir, reported the Zilani sensor operator, the scout ships are scanning our orbital space. They'll detect your ships soon. Good, Morrison said calmly. Captain Bennett, signal the fleet. Let's introduce ourselves to our new friends. Sir? Bennett looked confused. Morrison smiled, and for the first time since meeting him, Lyra felt truly sorry for the Krex. Captain, please send the following message on all frequencies. This world is under human protection. Leave now or face the consequences. The message was broadcast immediately. Within minutes, they received a response from the Krex scout commander. The alien voice was filled with arrogance and contempt. Primitive humans, you are outnumbered 50-1 by our advanced scouts alone. Our main fleet will arrive tomorrow with 200 ships. Surrender now and we will allow you to leave this system alive. Morrison walked to the communications station and activated the transmitter himself. When he spoke, his voice was calm but filled with steel. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Human Space Navy. Let me explain something to you. We came here because innocent people asked for help. We don't negotiate with bullies, and we don't abandon people who trust us. If you attack this world, you'll have to go through us. There was a long pause before the Krex commander responded, his voice now filled with anger. So be it, humans. We will destroy your pathetic ships and then make the inhabitants of this world pay for your foolishness. Morrison turned off the communicator and looked around the room at the worried faces of the Zilani officers. Admiral, Lyra said quietly, are you sure about this? They have so many more ships than you do. Morrison's smile was confident and somehow reassuring. Commander, They're about to learn why other species call us the Storm People. When we fight, we don't fight fair. We fight to win. Outside in the darkness of space, 15 Krek scout ships moved toward the planet, expecting easy victory. Behind them, racing through hyperspace, came 200 more vessels filled with confident warriors who had never lost a battle. None of them understood what they were about to face. None of them knew that humans had spent their entire history learning how to fight against impossible odds. And none of them realized that when humans said they would protect someone, they meant it with their lives. The Krek scout ships attacked at dawn. 15 sleek vessels moved toward the planet like hunting wolves, expecting to destroy the 4 human ships quickly before the main fleet arrived. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the UES Thunderstrike, watching his tactical display. The Krek ships were moving in a standard attack formation, something any military academy student would recognize. "They're not taking us seriously," observed Captain Lisa Bennett from the Lightning. "Their mistake," Morrison replied calmly. "All ships, execute Plan Delta. Show them what happens when you threaten innocent people." What happened next would become legend throughout the galaxy. The 4 human ships didn't arrange themselves in defensive positions around the planet like the Kreks expected. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the enemy fleet at maximum speed. The Krek's commander, surprised by this aggressive move, ordered his ships to maintain formation and prepare for a standard ship-to-ship battle. He had fought dozens of YAR battles and conquered 17 worlds. 4 primitive human vessels would be destroyed in minutes. The UES Lightning reached the Krek's formation first. Captain Bennett's ship was the fastest in the human fleet, designed for hit-and-run attacks. As the enemy ships fired their main weapons, the Lightning suddenly changed direction in a way that should have been impossible. "How are they moving? Like that?" demanded the Krek's commander as his shots missed completely. The answer was simple. Human ships were built differently. While other species designed their vessels for comfort and appearance, humans built them to survive combat. Every system was reinforced. Every component could handle massive stress, and human pilots trained for maneuvers that would kill crews of other species. The Lightning swept past the Krek's formation, firing as it moved. But these weren't ordinary weapons. Lieutenant Commander Nick Torres had spent the previous day analyzing Krek's ship designs, looking for weaknesses. The Lightning shots hit specific points on enemy vessels, targeting their weapon systems and engines. 3 Krek ships were disabled in the first pass. The remaining 12 tried to pursue the Lightning, but Captain Bennett was already gone, racing around to attack from a different angle. "Impossible," muttered the Krek's commander. "No ship can accelerate that fast without killing its crew." He was right. No other species could handle the forces that human ships regularly used in combat. But humans had evolved on a world with strong gravity, in an environment where survival meant adapting to harsh conditions. What would kill other species only made humans uncomfortable. The UES Tempest and Hurricane joined the battle, attacking from opposite sides of the Krek's formation. The enemy ships found themselves surrounded by human vessels that moved like nothing they had ever seen before. But the real surprise came when Admiral Morrison's flagship, the Thunderstrike, arrived at the battle. The heavy cruiser was larger and slower than the other human ships, but it carried something the Kreks had never encountered: human Marines ready for boarding actions. "Target the Krek's command ship," Morrison ordered. "Colonel Murphy, prepare your teams." The Thunderstrike fired specially designed missiles that attached themselves to the hull of the Krek's command vessel. Instead of exploding, they burned through the armor plating and created entry points. Colonel Ryan Murphy led the first boarding team through the breach. What the Kreks found coming through their hull were not the civilized warriors they were used to fighting. These were human Marines, soldiers who had trained their entire careers for close combat in the most dangerous conditions imaginable. The Kreks were large, powerful insects with natural armor and sharp claws. In individual combat, they were stronger than humans. But they had never faced an enemy that fought as a team the way humans did. Murphy's Marines moved through the Krek ship like a storm, using tactics that confused and terrified the enemy. They used the ship's own corridors as weapons, setting traps and ambushes. They turned the lights off and fought in complete darkness, something humans could do but most other species could not. Within 20 minutes, the Krex command ship was under human control. Colonel Murphy stood on the bridge looking at the captured enemy commander. "Your choice," Murphy said simply. "Order your remaining ships to surrender, or we'll take them one by one." The Krex commander looked at the human marine with something like respect. "You fight like demons." "We fight like humans," Murphy replied. "There's a difference." The surviving Krex scout ships surrendered. 9 vessels were destroyed or disabled, and 6 were captured intact. The entire battle had lasted less than 2 hours, but this was only the beginning. Long-range sensors detected the main Krex invasion fleet approaching the edge of the solar system. 200 ships, the largest fleet the Krex had ever assembled, moving toward what they thought would be an easy conquest. Morrison stood in the Zalani command center, watching the sensor displays with Commander Lyra Voss and her officers. The approaching fleet was so large it looked like a moving cloud on the long-range scanners. "Admiral," Lyra said quietly, "that's 10 times larger than anything we expected. Even after what your ships just did, how can 4 vessels fight 200? Morrison smiled, but his expression was not reassuring. It was the smile of a predator who had just spotted prey. "Commander, they're about to learn something important about humans. We don't just fight to win battles. We fight to end wars." Over the next 6 hours, Morrison's fleet prepared for the largest space battle in recent galactic history. But they weren't preparing the way other species would. Instead of arranging their ships in defensive positions, they were setting traps. Dr. Amanda Foster worked with Zalani engineers to turn communication satellites into weapons. Colonel Murphy placed his Marines on captured Krex ships, ready to turn enemy vessels against their own fleet. Captain Bennett programmed electronic warfare systems that would confuse enemy sensors and communications. Most importantly, Lieutenant Commander Torres had discovered something crucial while analyzing the captured Krex ships. The enemy fleet used a centralized command system. If the right ships were destroyed at the right time, the entire fleet would lose coordination. "It's like cutting the head off a snake," Torres explained to Morrison. "Take out their command ships and the rest of the fleet won't know what to do." "How many command ships?" 5 main command vessels, sir, plus about 20 secondary command ships that relay orders to smaller groups. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "So we need to destroy 25 specific ships out of 200 total. In the first few minutes of battle, sir, before they realize what's happening." Morrison looked at his officers. "Gentlemen, lady, we're about to attempt something that will either save this world or get us all killed." Captain Bennett raised an eyebrow. "What did you have in mind, sir?" "We're going to do something no sane military commander would ever try. We're going to split our forces and attack the enemy fleet from 4 different directions simultaneously." The room fell silent. Military doctrine from every species taught that dividing your forces in the face of superior numbers was suicide. "Sir," said Torres carefully, "that means each of our ships will be facing 50 enemy vessels alone." "Exactly," Morrison replied. "They'll never expect it. And while they're trying to figure out which ship to attack first, we'll be destroying their command structure." Outside, the Krex invasion fleet continued approaching the planet. General Thax IX, the fleet commander, was confident of victory. His force had conquered 17 worlds without losing a single major battle. 4 human ships, no matter how unusually they fought, could not stand against the might of 200 Krex vessels. What General Thax IX didn't understand was that he wasn't facing 4 ships. He was facing something much more dangerous. He was facing humans who had decided that innocent people needed protection, and who would do whatever it took to provide that protection. In a few hours, the general would discover why other species had started calling humans the Storm People. He would learn that when humans came to war, they didn't come to fight fair. They came to win, no matter the cost. The storm was about to break, and nothing would ever be the same. The main Krex invasion fleet arrived like a dark cloud against the stars. 200 ships spread across space in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with weapon systems and armor plating. General Thax 9 stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident that this would be another easy victory. "Report," he commanded his officers. "Sir, we've lost contact with our advanced scouts. Long-range sensors show debris in orbit around the planet." Thax 9's confidence wavered slightly. 15 ships should have been more than enough to handle 4 primitive human vessels. "Show me." The main screen displayed the wreckage of Krex, scout ships floating in space. Mixed among the debris were 4 intact human vessels, moving in formation around the planet like guard dogs protecting their territory. 4 ships destroyed 15 of ours? Thax 9 couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." Admiral Jake Morrison's face appeared on the screen. Even through the communication link, his determination was clear. "General Thax 9, this is Admiral Morrison. Your advance force has been defeated. This world is under human protection. Turn your fleet around and leave this system immediately." Thax 9 laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. "Admiral, you have 4 ships. I have 200. Surrender now and I will allow your crews to live as slaves." Morrison's expression didn't change. "General, you've made a mistake. You came here to hurt innocent people. We came here to stop you. There's a difference." "Then you will die for your foolishness," Thax 9 snarled. "All ships, attack formation, destroy the human vessels." What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. As the Krex fleet moved toward the planet, the 4 human ships suddenly split apart, racing in different directions at maximum speed. The UES Lightning shot toward the left side of the Krex formation. The Tempest and Hurricane headed for the right and rear. Admiral Morrison's flagship, the Thunderstrike, accelerated directly toward the center of the enemy fleet. "Sir," called Thax 9's tactical officer, "they're dividing their forces. Each of our groups now faces only 1 enemy ship." "Excellent," the general replied. "Focus fire on each human vessel. Destroy them one at a time." But as the Krex ships moved to surround the individual human vessels, something unexpected happened. The human ships weren't trying to escape or defend themselves. They were hunting. Captain Lisa Bennett's Lightning reached the left wing of the Krex formation first. Her ship moved through the enemy vessels like a knife through water, striking precisely at specific targets. But she wasn't attacking random ships. Lieutenant Commander Nick Torres had identified exactly which vessels she needed to destroy. Command ship Krolex 7, destroyed. Torres reported from his position on the Thunderstrike. Secondary command, Vessel Battleclaw 12, destroyed. Communications relay ship Stinger 3, destroyed. Across the battlefield, the other human ships were doing the same thing. They were systematically destroying the Krex command structure, cutting the connections that held the massive fleet together. General Thax 9 watched in growing horror as his perfectly organized fleet began to fall apart. Ships were losing contact with their commanders. Entire squadrons stopped receiving orders. The disciplined formation started to break down into confused groups of vessels. "What are they doing?" he demanded. "Sir, they're targeting our command ships specifically. They know exactly which vessels to hit." The Thunderstrike burst through the center of the Krex formation like a battering ram. Morrison's ship was taking heavy damage, but it kept moving, kept fighting. Colonel Ryan Murphy's Marines launched boarding pods at 3 enemy vessels simultaneously, capturing them and turning their weapons against their former allies. Within 30 minutes, the Krex fleet had lost all central coordination. Individual ship commanders were making their own decisions, some trying to continue the attack, others attempting to retreat, still others just trying to survive. But the humans weren't finished. Morrison opened a communication channel to every ship in the Krex fleet. "This is Admiral Morrison. Your fleet is broken. Your command structure is destroyed. You can continue fighting and die, or you can surrender and live. Choose now." Some Krex captains, seeing their hopeless situation, immediately surrendered. Others, driven by pride or fear, continued to fight. The human ships methodically hunted down each group of resistance, using tactics that no enemy had ever encountered. Dr. Amanda Foster's medical teams, working from captured Krex vessels, broadcast messages offering medical aid to wounded enemy crews. This act of mercy toward defeated enemies confused many Krex warriors, who had never seen such behavior in war. When the battle finally ended, 68 Krex ships had been destroyed. 43 were captured intact and 89 had surrendered. The remaining vessels of the once mighty invasion fleet limped away toward Krex space, carrying word of their defeat. General Thax 9 stood in the detention area of the Thunderstrike, waiting to meet with Admiral Morrison. When the human admiral arrived, Thax 9 expected threats or demands for information. Instead, Morrison sat down across from him with a tired expression. "General, why did you come here?" "To conquer, as we always do," Thax 9 replied automatically. "And now?" The Krex general looked confused. "Now I am your prisoner." Morrison shook his head. "No, you're going home. All of you." "I don't understand. We're releasing your surviving crews and giving you ships to get back to Krex space. But you're going to carry a message to your leaders." Thax 9 stared at the human admiral. "You're not taking prisoners? Not demanding tribute?" "General, we didn't come here to conquer anyone. We came here to protect people who asked for help. The Zilani are safe now. That's all we wanted." A week later, Commander Lyra Voss stood with Admiral Morrison in the main square of the Zilani capital city. Around them, her people were celebrating their freedom, mixing with human Marines who had helped rebuild damaged buildings. "Admiral," Lyra said, "I still don't understand. You could have demanded anything from us after saving our world. Territory, resources, alliance agreements, why ask for nothing?" Morrison watched a human medic teaching Zilani children how to play a simple Earth game. "Commander, what good would it do to save you from slavery only to enslave you ourselves? But surely your government expects some benefit from this mission. Our government expects us to do the right thing. Sometimes that's benefit enough." News of the Battle of Kepler 442b spread throughout the galaxy within days. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. The Altarian Council, which had refused to help the Zilani, suddenly requested human protection for their trade routes. The Centaurian Empire offered formal alliance agreements. Even former enemies began reaching out, seeking to understand this species that fought not for conquest but for protection. The Krex Dominion sued for peace within 6 months. General Thax 9, released as promised, had delivered Morrison's message to the Krex leadership. Stop attacking innocent worlds or face humanity again. 6 months after the battle, Admiral Morrison stood in the same command center on Luna Base, where he had first received the Zilani distress call. The walls now displayed a new map, showing human patrol routes throughout the galaxy, monitoring for distress signals. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Sam Carter, "we're receiving requests for protection from 12 different worlds this month." "Fleet status?" "We now have 40 ships assigned to protection duties, sir. More are being built every month." Morrison nodded, satisfied. The Human Protection Covenant had been formally established, a simple agreement that promised human assistance to any world threatened by aggressors. Unlike other galactic treaties, it had only one requirement. The request for help had to be genuine. Captain Lisa Bennett entered the command center with a smile. "Admiral, I thought you'd want to see this." She handed him a message pad showing communications from across the galaxy. Species after species was reporting the same thing. Aggressive empires were quietly abandoning their expansion plans. Pirates were avoiding trade routes near human patrol areas. Slave raiders had stopped operating in sectors where human ships might respond. "It seems," Bennett observed, "that word has gotten around about what happens when you threaten people under human protection." Morrison looked out at the stars where human ships moved through space like guardians, listening for calls for help. "Good. Maybe now innocent people can sleep safely, knowing that if they call for help, someone will answer." The age of human protection had begun. Across the galaxy, peaceful species looked to the stars with new hope, while aggressive empires learned to fear the storm that came when humanity decided to protect the innocent. In the end, the humans had achieved something that no other species had managed in thousands of years of galactic civilization. They had made the galaxy a safer place, not through conquest or domination, but through the simple promise that when someone called for help, Humanity would come like a storm. The year was 2157. Humans now lived on Mars and Europa. They had space stations looking out into deep space. Captain Eleanor Pierce stood on the bridge of her ship, the Valiant. She was tall with short brown hair and tired eyes that had seen too many stars. "Captain, we've got something on our scanners," said Jack Morris, her sensor officer. Jack was young with sandy hair and freckles. His fingers moved quickly over the screens. Eleanor walked over to his station. "What is it, Morris?" "Not sure, ma'am. It's coming in from beyond Pluto, moving too straight to be natural." Eleanor looked at the reading. The object was moving at incredible speed, too fast for any human ship. Her heart beat faster, but her face stayed calm. "Alert status yellow. I want all systems ready." The crew moved quickly. They had trained for this moment their whole careers. First contact. The thought both excited and scared Eleanor. "Put it on screen," she ordered. The main screen showed a dark shape against the stars. At first it looked like a rock, but as they got closer they could see it was made of metal. It had a shape like nothing built by human hands. Long and sharp at one end, round and bulky at the other. "Any signals?" Eleanor asked. Olivia Grant, the communications officer, shook her head. Her dark skin looked pale in the blue light of her screen. "Nothing yet, Captain. Send the first contact package, all frequencies." The first contact package was humanity's hello to the stars. It had math, science, art, and music. Things that any thinking being might understand. The alien ship suddenly sped up. It moved with a grace that made the Valiant look slow and clumsy. "They're heading straight for us," Jack shouted. "Hold position," Eleanor said. "Let's not scare them." The alien ship stopped half a mile from the Valiant. It was 5 times bigger than their ship. Its surface shimmered like oil on water. "Captain, we're getting something," Olivia said. Her eyes went wide. It's in mathematical sequences. Lots of them." "Send it to Dr. Patel," Eleanor ordered. Dr. Nisha Patel was their language expert. If anyone could make sense of alien math, it was her. 20 minutes passed in tense silence. Finally, Dr. Patel's voice came over the comm. She sounded shaken. "Captain, I've worked out part of their message. It's not friendly. They're demanding we surrender." "Surrender? Are you sure?" Eleanor asked. "Yes. They want Earth and all our planets. They call themselves the Draconians. They say we are pests in their territory." Eleanor took a deep breath. "Open a channel, Olivia." "Channel open. This is Captain Eleanor Pierce of the Earth Defense Force vessel Valiant. We wish for peaceful contact with your species. We have no quarrel with you and would like to establish diplomatic relations." The response came fast. The ship suddenly lit up with bright spots along its hull. "Energy spike," Jack yelled. "Evasive maneuvers." Eleanor shouted, but it was too late. The alien weapon hit the Valiant like a hammer. The ship rocked. Sparks flew from consoles. People screamed. The lights went out. Then the red emergency lights came on. "Damage report," Eleanor yelled over. The noise of alarms. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, engines at 30%, weapons offline," came a voice through the smoke. "Casualties?" Eleanor asked, dreading the answer. "At least 20 dead, maybe more. A third of her crew. Gone in seconds." Eleanor felt rage build inside her, but she pushed it down. Now was not the time. "The alien ship is moving away," Jack said. "They're heading toward the outer system." "Can we follow?" Eleanor asked. "Not with our engines in this state, we'd never catch them." "Olivia, any more communications?" "Yes, Captain. They're broadcasting in the clear now." Olivia looked sick. "They're talking about us, calling us an infestation, saying our worlds have resources they want. They plan to come back with more ships in 6 months. Eleanor gripped the edge of her chair until her knuckles turned white. "Have they done this before?" Olivia listened more. "They mentioned 17 other species they've conquered. They call them all primitives." Eleanor stood up straight despite the pain in her side from a cut. "Get the engines working. We need to reach Mars Station. The Earth government needs to know what's coming." As the damaged Valiant limped through space, Eleanor looked out at the stars. They had always represented hope and adventure to her. Now they held a terrible threat. The Draconians thought humans would be easy to conquer. just like those other 17 species. They were wrong. In her quarters, Eleanor watched the recording of the attack again. The Draconians had fired without warning after her peaceful message. No attempt to talk. No honor. There was a knock at her door. Dr. Patel entered, her face grim. "I've translated more of their messages," she said. "They've been watching us for years. They think we're weak because we care for our sick and help other nations in need. They see kindness as a flaw." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Then we'll have to show them another side of humanity. What can we do against their technology? You saw what one ship did to us." Eleanor's eyes hardened. "Humans have faced impossible odds before. When pushed too far, we don't just fight back. We change the rules of the fight." She pulled up a star map on her screen. "We have 6 months, we'll use every second." As Mars Station came into view, Eleanor made a silent promise to her dead crew members. The Draconians thought they were starting a simple conquest. Instead, they had awakened something they couldn't understand. A species that had fought itself for centuries, becoming experts in the art of war. The Draconians wanted war? Then humanity would show them what war truly meant. The news of the Draconian attack spread quickly. Within days of the Valiant reaching Mars Station, every human on Earth, Mars, and Europa knew what had happened. People were scared, but they were also angry. The United Earth government called an emergency meeting. Representatives from all nations and colonies gathered in the Great Hall in Geneva. The room buzzed with worried voices. President Laura Benson stood at the center podium. She was a short woman with steel-gray hair and a face that showed both worry and determination. "We have 6 months before the Draconians return," she said. 6 months to prepare for a war unlike any humanity has ever faced. Captain Eleanor Pierce sat in the front row. Her wounds from the attack had been treated, but she still felt the pain of losing her crew members. She listened as military leaders argued about how to defend Earth. "We should focus all our forces around Earth," said General Frank Harper. "It's our most populated world. We can't let it fall." Admiral Samantha Wells shook her head. She was a tall black woman with close-cropped hair and a scar across her left cheek. She had led human forces during the Mars Rebellion 10 years ago. "That's exactly what they'll expect," she said. "The Draconians have done this before 17 times, by their own count. They expect us to protect our homeworld at all costs." "What are you suggesting?" asked President Benson. Admiral Wells stood up. "A decentralized defense. The Draconians don't understand humans. They think we only care about Earth. They don't understand our attachment to all our worlds and outposts." She walked to the holographic display in the center of the room and brought up a map of the solar system. "We make them think we're centering our defense around Earth, but our real strength will be hidden throughout the system. We can use the asteroid belt, the moons of Jupiter, the rings of Saturn. We turn the entire solar system into a battlefield." Eleanor felt a spark of hope for the first time since the attack. This was thinking the Draconians wouldn't expect. Dr. Alan Rodriguez stepped forward next. He was Earth's top expert on alien life. "I've studied the data from the Valiant encounter. The Draconians evolved as hunters on a high-gravity world. They're physically stronger than us. Their entire society is built around domination. They don't understand cooperation or peaceful coexistence." "So there's no chance for diplomacy?" President Benson asked. "They see it as weakness," Eleanor said, standing up. "I tried to talk peacefully. They opened fire without hesitation." Meanwhile, in a lab on Europa, engineer Kyle Winters was working day and night. He was a thin man with glasses and hands that never seemed to stop moving. His team had been given pieces of draconian technology recovered from the battle. "Look at this," Kyle said to his assistant, Maria Diaz. He pointed to a strange device that glowed with a blue light. "Their ships use quantum communication. It's faster and more secure than our radio systems." Maria frowned. "That gives them a huge advantage in battle." Kyle smiled for the first time in days. "Yes, but I found something else. Their quantum system is sensitive to specific radiation patterns. If we could generate those patterns, we could disrupt their communications," Maria finished. "They wouldn't be able to coordinate their ships. Exactly. The plan that emerged over the next weeks was called Scattered Hell. Mining stations throughout the asteroid belt were secretly converted into military bases. Weapons were hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids. Unmanned drones were built by the thousands. On the surface, it appeared that Earth was putting all its defenses around the homeworld. The Draconians would have spies watching. They needed to see what they expected to see. Eleanor was given command of a new ship, a stealth vessel called the Shadow. It was smaller than the Valiant, but faster and nearly invisible to sensors. Her mission would be to hide in the darkness of space and coordinate the real attack when the time came. "Are you sure about this plan?" Eleanor asked Admiral Wells as they inspected the Shadow. "No," Wells admitted, "but it's better than waiting to be slaughtered." 3 months passed with feverish preparation. Then, one day, alarm signals blared throughout the system. "They're early," Kyle shouted as he watched the sensor readings. "The Draconian fleet has entered the solar system." The Draconians had arrived with 3 months to spare. 12 massive warships and dozens of smaller vessels moved past Neptune, heading straight for Earth. They had expected humans to need the full 6 months to prepare. They wanted to catch humanity off guard. The Earth Defense Fleet moved to intercept the Draconians near the moon. It looked like humanity was throwing everything they had at the invaders. Ships fired missiles and energy weapons. The battle was fierce, but it was also one-sided. Human ships exploded one after another. The Draconian weapons were too powerful, their shields too strong. Admiral Wells, watching from her command center on Mars, gave the order, "Retreat, make it look real." The remaining human ships fled toward Earth. The Draconians followed, believing they had broken humanity's main defense. The Draconian commander, Vrax, broadcast a message across all frequencies. "Your resistance was brave but useless. Surrender now and we will let some of your kind live as workers." From her position in the shadow of the moon, Eleanor watched the Draconian fleet move into Earth orbit. Now was the time. She sent a simple message. "Activate Operation Hellfire." Throughout the asteroid belt, hundreds of unmanned drones suddenly powered up. They had been waiting, silent and dark. Now they rushed toward the Draconian fleet from all directions. Each drone carried a special payload designed by Kyle Winters. As they reached the Draconian ships, they detonated, releasing the specific radiation that disrupted quantum communications. Suddenly, the Draconian fleet fell into chaos. Their ships couldn't talk to each other. They couldn't coordinate their movements or weapons. "Now," Admiral Wells ordered. From hidden bases throughout the solar system, the real human fleet appeared. Ships emerged from inside hollow asteroids. Weapon platforms rose from the surfaces of moons. Even the Earth fleet that had retreated was just a small part of humanity's true forces. They struck the confused Draconian vessels from all sides. 3 of the biggest Draconian ships exploded in the first minutes of the attack. The remaining Draconian ships tried to fight back, but without their communication systems, they couldn't work together. One by one, they turned and fled, racing back toward the edge of the solar system. As she watched them run, Eleanor felt no joy, only grim satisfaction. "This was just the first battle," she said to her crew. "They'll be back, and next time they'll be ready for our tricks." Admiral Wells' voice came over the communication system. "All ships return to base. We've won today, but the war has just begun." Humanity had survived the first attack, but everyone knew the truth. The Draconians would return with a larger force. The real fight was still ahead. The victory celebration lasted only 1 day. Humanity knew the Draconians would return, and they would come back stronger and smarter. The real war was just beginning. Admiral Wells called a meeting of all military leaders. They gathered in an underground base on Mars, away from any possible Draconian spies. "We hurt them, but we didn't stop them," she said. "Our trick with the radiation won't work again. They'll find a way to protect their communications." Eleanor nodded. She had seen the Draconian ships up close. "We need to know more about them, their weaknesses, their plans." Kyle Winters stepped forward with a new idea. "What if we could follow them, see where they go?" Everyone stared at him. "How?" Admiral Wells asked. Our ships can't match their speed. Kyle pulled up a hologram showing pieces of a draconian engine. We've been studying their technology. I think we can build a ship with their jump drive system. It would let us travel faster than anything we've built before. President Benson, who had joined by video link, leaned forward. How long would this take? 3 months, maybe 4, Kyle said. We have most of the parts we need from the draconian ships we damaged. Do it, the president ordered. Meanwhile, we continue building our defenses. Next time they come, they'll bring their entire fleet. For the next 3 months, humans worked day and night. The asteroid belt became a minefield. Hidden bases were built on every moon and planet. Earth itself was surrounded by defensive platforms. Kyle and his team worked on the new ship. They named it the Retribution. It was smaller than the main draconian warships, but faster and more maneuverable. It had the best weapons humans could build, plus systems based on draconian technology. Eleanor was chosen to command the Retribution. Her mission would be dangerous. Follow the draconians back to their territory, gather information, and return. Why me? She asked Admiral Wells. Because you faced them and lived, Wells answered. And because you understand what we're fighting for. Not just survival, but the right to exist as equals. The day the Retribution was ready for its first test flight, alarms sounded across the solar system. The draconian fleet had returned. This time, they came with 40 warships, not 12. They had learned from their defeat and changed their approach. Instead of heading straight for Earth, they spread out, attacking human outposts across the solar system. They're trying to find our hidden bases, Admiral Wells said. Everyone, stick to the plan. Operation Deep Hell is now active. Human ships. Engage the draconians at key points, drawing them away from the most important bases. It was a fighting retreat, designed to make the draconians chase them across the system. Meanwhile, Eleanor and the crew of the Retribution waited in a hidden dock inside Phobos, one of Mars's moons. Their orders were clear. Wait until the main battle was underway, then slip away and follow the draconian supply lines back to their home territory. Retribution, you are cleared for launch, came the order. The ship slipped out of its hiding place and immediately activated its stealth systems. It moved silently away from Mars, avoiding the battles raging across the system. As they reached the outer planets, they spotted a draconian scout ship moving ahead of them. It was heading back toward draconian space, likely carrying information about the battle. Follow that ship, Eleanor ordered. Keep our distance. We don't want them to know we're here. The draconian ship suddenly accelerated, then vanished in a flash of light. They've jumped to faster-than-light speed, said Olivia. Grant, who had survived the valiant attack and joined Eleanor's new crew. Can we track them? Eleanor asked. Yes, said Jack Morris, also from the original Valiant crew. The jump leaves a trace we can follow. Then do it. Activate our jump drive. The Retribution shuddered as its engines powered up. The stars around them blurred, then stretched into lines. There was a moment of pressure, like being squeezed from all sides. Then suddenly they were somewhere else. The view screen showed an unfamiliar star system. A red sun burned in the distance. Around it orbited several planets and a massive space station. Where are we? Eleanor asked. About 20 light years from Earth, Jack answered. This must be a draconian outpost. They approached cautiously, using their stealth systems to hide from draconian sensors. As they got closer to the space station, they began picking up signals. Captain, Olivia said, her voice shaking. Some of these signals, they're in English. English, are you sure? Positive. And other human languages, too. There are humans on that station. Eleanor felt a chill. Can you make contact without the draconians noticing? Olivia worked at her console, then nodded. I think so. I can send a narrow beam transmission directly to the source of the human signals. Do it. They waited tensely. Then a voice came through, weak and filled with static. This is Dr. Paul Bennett of the colony ship Hope. Who is this? Please tell me you're from Earth. Eleanor stared at her crew in shock. The Hope was a colony ship that had left Earth 30 years ago, headed for the Proxima Centauri system. It had disappeared, and everyone aboard was presumed dead. Dr. Bennett, this is Captain Eleanor Pierce of the Earth vessel Retribution. We thought the hope was lost. We were attacked, Bennett said, his voice becoming clearer as Olivia adjusted the signal. The Draconians captured us. They've been holding us here for years along with other species they've conquered. They use us for labor and experiments. How many humans are there? About 300 of us left. There were over 1,000 when we were captured. Eleanor felt cold anger rising inside her. We're going to get you out, Dr. Bennett. All of you. That's impossible. This station is heavily guarded. There are thousands of Draconian soldiers. Eleanor looked at her crew. They nodded, their faces showing the same determination she felt. Nothing is impossible for humans when we're pushed too far, she said. And the Draconians have pushed us beyond our limits. She turned to her tactical officer. Prepare a rescue plan. We're getting our people out of there. The mission had changed. They had come to gather information, but now they had a new purpose. Rescue the captured humans and strike a blow against the Draconians that they would never forget. As the Retribution moved into position, Eleanor thought about all the people who had died in this war so far. The crew of the Valiant, the defenders in the first battle, those who were fighting right now back in the solar system. The Draconians think they know war, she said quietly. They don't. But they're about to learn. Eleanor and her crew spent 2 days watching the Draconian space station. They needed to understand its defenses and routines before they could attempt a rescue. The station has a regular patrol pattern, Jack said, pointing to the sensor display. Every 6 hours, security ships circle the outer ring. There's a gap of about 15 minutes between patrols. What about inside? Eleanor asked. Dr. Bennett sent us a rough map, Olivia said. She pulled up a diagram on the main screen. The human prisoners are kept in this section here. There are other alien species in nearby sections. Eleanor studied the map. How many guards? At least 20 in the prison section alone. Hundreds more throughout the station. It seemed impossible. The Retribution had a crew of 30. Even with their advanced weapons, they couldn't fight hundreds of Draconian soldiers. We don't need to fight them all, Eleanor said finally. We just need to create enough confusion to get our people out. She outlined her plan. It was risky, but it might work if everything went perfectly. Jack, you'll take a small team and plant these devices. She held up several small black boxes Kyle had designed. They'll disrupt their communications, just like during the battle in our system. Once their systems are down, she continued, Olivia will lead the main rescue team. Get to the prison section, free our people, and get back to the ship. What about you, Captain? Jack asked. I'll be creating a distraction. Eleanor's face was grim. The Draconians need to learn that taking humans prisoner was a mistake. 6 hours later, the Retribution moved silently toward the station during the gap between patrol ships. They docked at an emergency airlock that wasn't being monitored. Remember, Eleanor said to her team, we have 40 minutes before the next patrol arrives. Be back here by then. The teams moved through the station like shadows. Jack's team placed the disruption devices at key points. Olivia's team headed for the prison section. Eleanor and 2 security officers moved toward the station's power core. Jack's voice came through the comm. Devices planted, ready to activate on your command. Do it, Eleanor ordered. The devices activated simultaneously. Throughout the station, lights flickered. Alarm systems went silent. Communication systems stopped working. In the prison section, Olivia's team encountered their first guards. The Draconians were tall, with scaly skin and 4 arms. They looked confused as their comm systems failed. The human team opened fire, using stun weapons that knocked the Draconians unconscious without killing them. They didn't want a bloodbath. They wanted a rescue. They reached the cells where the humans were kept. Dr. Bennett was waiting, his face thin and pale after years of captivity. We need to hurry, he said. And not just for us. There are others. Others? Olivia asked. Other species. The Draconians have been conquering worlds for centuries. Some of these prisoners have been here for generations. Olivia hesitated, then called Eleanor. Captain, there are other prisoners, non-humans. Dr. Bennett says we should free them too. There was a pause before Eleanor responded. Do it. Free everyone you can. We didn't come all this way to leave anyone behind. Meanwhile, Eleanor and her team reached the power core. They planted explosive charges set to detonate after they left. This will disable the station for weeks, she said, and send a message. As they turned to leave, they found their path blocked by 5 draconian soldiers. The largest one stepped forward. Humans, he hissed. You dare to attack us here? Eleanor raised her weapon. We dare a lot more than that. The fight was brief but intense. The draconians were stronger, but the humans were quicker and more desperate. When it was over, Eleanor had a deep cut on her arm, but all 5 draconians were down. Let's move, she ordered. Back to the ship. Across the station, chaos spread as cell doors opened. Hundreds of prisoners rushed out, overwhelming the confused guards. Most had been captives for so long that freedom seemed like a dream. Among them was a tall, blue-skinned alien named Zenlor. Unlike the others, he moved with purpose, helping organize the escape. When Olivia saw him directing other aliens, she approached him. Who are you? I am Zenlor, diplomatic envoy of the Atraxians, he replied in perfect English. We have been fighting the Draconians for centuries. They captured me during peace talks. Peace talks? The Draconians don't seem interested in peace. They are not. They see all other species as resources to be used or eliminated. Zenlor looked at the humans with interest. Your species is the first to actually strike back effectively. As they headed for the retribution, more aliens joined them. What had begun as a rescue mission for humans had become something much larger. Eleanor met them at the airlock. We need to leave now. The patrol ships will be back soon. She looked at the crowd of aliens with surprise. I didn't expect so many. Captain, Zenlor said, stepping forward. Your people have done something no one has done before. You've shown that the Draconians can be beaten. The retribution was designed for a crew of 30, not hundreds of refugees. But they made it work, cramming people into every available space. As they pulled away from the station, Eleanor activated the charges they had planted. The power core exploded, sending a shockwave through the station. It didn't destroy it completely, but it would be useless for a long time. Jump drive ready, Jack reported. Take us home, Eleanor ordered. As the ship prepared to jump, Zenlor approached Eleanor. The Draconians aren't invincible, he said. They've just never faced a species willing to truly fight back. Most civilizations they encounter try diplomacy, until it's too late. We tried diplomacy, Eleanor said. They chose war. And that was their mistake, Zenlor replied. My people have studied the Draconians for generations. They understand force, but they've never experienced true resistance. They've never met a species like humans who can be both civilized and fierce when threatened. The ship jumped, leaving the damaged station behind. They were taking more than rescued prisoners back to Earth. They were bringing hope and new allies. Back in Earth's solar system, the battle was still raging. The Draconian fleet was pushing the human defenses to their limits. Admiral Wells had enacted the final phase of her strategy, but even she wasn't sure it would be enough. The war had reached its critical point. Everything would depend on what happened next. The retribution jumped back into Earth's solar system in the middle of chaos. The space around Mars was filled with explosions and debris as human ships fought against the much larger Draconian fleet. Get us to Earth, Eleanor ordered. We need to report what we found. As they flew through the battle zone, they saw that humanity was losing. The Draconian ships were pushing closer to Earth with each hour. Admiral Wells' plan was working, but not well enough against so many enemy ships. When they reached Earth orbit, President Benson called an emergency meeting. Military leaders, scientists, and now representatives from the alien species they had rescued all gathered together. Zenlor spoke first. He stood tall among the tired humans, his blue skin making him stand out in the crowded room. The Draconians have conquered 17 species before yours, he said. But none of those species fought back like humans have. You are unique in the galaxy. How so? President Benson asked. Most advanced civilizations evolve beyond their violent instincts. They become peaceful and cooperative. This is good for building societies, but bad for facing species like the Draconians. Zenlor looked at the humans around him with something like wonder. Humans are different. You have somehow kept your fighting spirit while also building an advanced civilization. The Draconians have never faced this combination before. Admiral Wells stepped forward. That's why our strategies are working. We're doing things they don't expect. But it's not enough, Eleanor said. We're still losing. Their ships are too powerful, and there are too many of them. Kyle Winters had been quiet, listening to everything. Now he stood up. We don't need to destroy all their ships. We need to make them afraid to come back. How? Admiral Wells asked. By showing them something they've never seen before. By making this solar system so dangerous, so hellish for them, that they'll never want to return. Over the next hours, they created a plan called Operation Hellscape. It wasn't about winning a traditional battle. It was about destroying the Draconians' will to fight. Every human ship, every station, every outpost received new orders. The aliens they had rescued provided crucial information about Draconian weaknesses. Zenlor and his people shared technology that humans had never seen before. Kyle worked with alien engineers to create new weapons. Nanites that could eat through Draconian ship hulls. Signals that could confuse their navigation systems. Viruses that could shut down their life support. This isn't just a fight for Earth anymore, President Benson told the United Forces. This is a fight for every species that wants to live free from Draconian control. 3 days later, the Draconian Supreme Commander sent a message to Earth. His face appeared on screens across the planet. He was large, with gray scales and yellow eyes that showed no emotion. Humans, he said, your resistance is impressive, but pointless. Surrender now, and we will allow some of you to live. Continue fighting, and we will destroy every human world and station. You have 6 hours to decide. President Benson didn't need 6 hours. She immediately sent a reply. On every frequency, in the Draconian language, you want war? Then welcome to hell. What followed wasn't a battle in the traditional sense. It was humanity unleashing every trick, every trap, every weapon they had prepared. The asteroid belt, which the Draconians thought was abandoned after the first battle, suddenly came alive with thousands of mines. When Draconian ships tried to move through it, they were caught in a field of nuclear explosions. The moons of Jupiter, which seemed to have no defenses, revealed massive ion cannons hidden inside craters. They fired simultaneously, catching a group of Draconian warships in a crossfire they couldn't escape. The liberated alien species fought alongside humans. Each brought their own unique advantages. The Atraxians, with their advanced shield technology. The Moralians, with their ability to hack into Draconian computers. The Zinthi, with their special weapons that could penetrate Draconian armor. Kyle's nanite swarms were deployed, targeting Draconian life support systems. They didn't kill immediately. They caused panic first, making the Draconians feel the ship, dying around them. Eleanor led the Retribution in a daring attack on the Draconian command ship. Using everything they had learned, they disabled its engines and weapons, then boarded it with a small but determined force. Fighting through the corridors, Eleanor and her team reached the bridge. There they found the Supreme Commander surrounded by his officers. How is this possible? He demanded as humans entered his command center. You are primitive. You should have surrendered. That's where you made your mistake, Eleanor said, her weapon pointed at his chest. Humans don't surrender when our survival is at stake. We fight harder. We get creative. We do whatever it takes. Across the solar system, the battle turned. The Draconian ships, caught in traps they never expected, began to retreat. Their perfect formation broke apart as each captain tried to save his own ship. Listen carefully, Eleanor told the Supreme Commander. We didn't start this war. You did, but we're ending it now. You will take your remaining ships and leave. You will tell your empire that Earth and all human colonies are off limits forever. The commander's yellow eyes narrowed. And if we refuse? Eleanor smiled coldly. Then what you've seen today will seem gentle compared to what follows. We've barely begun to show you what humans are capable of when pushed too far. The Supreme Commander looked at the humans standing before him, then at the screens showing his fleet in retreat. For the first time in his long life, he felt something. New fear. This war is over, he said finally. The remaining Draconian ships, less than a quarter of the fleet they had arrived with, left the solar system, sending a message of defeat back to their empire. For the first time in 1,000 years of conquest, the Draconians had been beaten. In the days that followed, humanity found itself in a changed universe. Earth became a meeting place for species resisting Draconian control. The United Earth government established the Interstellar Defense Alliance, with humans providing military strategy, while other species contributed their own strengths. Admiral Wells and Eleanor stood on the observation deck of the newly rebuilt Mars station, watching ships from a dozen alien worlds come and go. We never wanted to be warriors, Wells said. But sometimes the universe doesn't give you a choice. Eleanor nodded. The Draconians thought they were teaching us our place in the galaxy. Instead, we taught them something they should have learned centuries ago. What's that? Wells asked. That some species refuse to kneel, no matter the odds. Eleanor looked out at the stars that no longer seemed threatening. And that starting a war with humans is the last mistake an enemy will ever make.